Hey everybody, happy Thursday. Hope you're all having a great week and looking forward to a nice weekend coming up. So, this evening, I wanted to talk a little bit about nutrition. Obviously, it's something that goes hand in hand with fitness. And no matter what your goals are, nutrition has to play a large role in that. The first thing I'd like to say around that is and this is, you know, advice that's very very old, but it is worth considering because I still see people kind of trying to trick themselves through this idea, and that idea is that you can out exercise an improper diet. And I mean, your diet doesn't even have to be that bad for it to for exercise not to work. I consider exercise to be a supplement to nutrition. Okay, so nutrition provides the base and really the framework for how the training is going to help you or not. And really, training can mean quite little in the grand scheme of things if nutrition is not really being looked at in detail. That's just one thing, not necessarily the topic of the conversation today. The topic that I did want to talk about is what's the best diet? And the answer to that is all of them are the best diet, okay? In my book, they're all fantastic because they all work. And they all work more or less with the same amount of efficacy. So paleo, great, works. Keto, awesome. Atkins, wonderful. Intermittent fasting, cool. The caveman diet, fine by me. They all work, all right? But I'm being somewhat facetious, obviously, because I would like everybody to kind of understand and be demystified, is that a word? About why these why these diets work. And they all work for the same reason. And I think, for example, the majority of people doing keto are not necessarily losing weight because they're in ketosis and burning fat for fuel. I don't really believe that. I believe that happens and can happen, but I believe the vast majority of people who think they're in ketosis probably aren't. That's just an example. So they're all great diets. They all work, but not because of their, proclaimed reasons in terms of their gimmick, right? The reason they all work is because when you do a diet, no matter what it is, you are eating less calories, okay? So when it comes to weight loss, the idea this is not the whole piece of it, but the main idea is you're gonna consume less than you were eating before, and therefore you're gonna see weight loss. So anytime you pick a diet, doesn't matter what it is, in all likelihood, you're cutting out a ton of other crap and therefore eating less calories. And then magically, you're now a zealot for, the ketogenic diet. So that's one reason. Another reason is if you're starting a diet, it's really likely that you're going to also be picking up exercise more, right? And probably with a little bit more intent and a little bit more efficiency relative to the motivation there because you're trying something new, blah, blah, blah. The other reason is, and this ties into the first reason, but if you're starting a new diet, you're also likely focusing on cutting out other processed foods or zeroing in more on lower calorie foods. You might, go from eating ice cream to popsicles or something like that. So you're switching out other things as well as taking in less calories, as well as picking up more exercise. So really, the fact that you're eating less, you're exercising more, and you're taking in less processed foods, I would love if somebody would argue to me that their favorite diet doesn't do those things and yet they still lose weight, okay? I mean, we can talk about, of course, flexible dieting, which it still applies. You are eating less calories, all right? So the point there is the best diet is whatever accomplishes those like three top things: less calories, exercising more, and less processed foods, whatever diet does that for you and you're able to hold on to it long term, that's what the best diet is. So that might be keto for you. That might be paleo. That might be high carbs, low fat. Whatever variation that seems to click for you, that's where it's at. So my intention is not to put down those fad diets. My intention is to make sure that you are informed in not being under the spell of some kind of, shaky science or whatever the sort of flavor of the week is, as it were. The part of the problem is that there's a ton of experiments that have been done on this. There is information on it, but you could theoretically lose weight by eating only Twinkies, as long as you stay under a certain threshold of calories. Obviously, that's not the best thing for you to do. But the point is, what it comes down to is, can you sustain what it is that you're doing? And I don't suggest the Twinkie diet, but you should look that study up because it is a little bit interesting. And so the other sort of beef I have, but I'm not overly critical with some of these diets, because if they work, they work. If they work long term, then they work long term. But another reason that I'm a little bit that I have a little bit of a beef with them is because most times these diets have an endpoint, whether it's your 30-day challenge, 6-week challenge, whatever the thing is, there's an end date there. And the idea that you're going to all of a sudden cut out an entire group of nutrients for the rest of your life is just highly, highly unlikely. Okay, I've never met a vegetarian who's been a vegetarian for their entire life. I'm playing a little bit. I love you plant-based eaters. I really do. I love you. But we can pick on keto as well a little bit more. The idea that you're, going to sustain on not having any carbs for the rest of your life, it's just highly, highly unlikely. That's not to say don't experiment. That's just to say be aware and be informed and have intention with all of those things that you do. So sort of in conclusion here, when you're trying to figure out, okay, I know I want to lose weight, or I know I want to do X, Y, and Z, and I know that nutrition is going to play a huge part of this, the top thing on your list should be, how can I arrange this in a way that it's going to last me sustainably? And do sort of, I guess, a thought experiment and think, can I commit to this for the next 10 years? Ask yourself that. Because if the answer is no, you may want to look at reworking what it is you're going to do. So I'm going to have a part 2 to this conversation this time next week. Now that we know what the best diet is, we're going to talk about how you can begin to narrow it down to make that best diet your best diet. And I'm really excited to do that. But in the meantime, I would love if you commented and told me maybe a little bit of a preview of other things you want to hear about or things that you want me to address next week in terms of nutrition. I'm willing to talk about everything and anything, would love to. Or if you want to know a little bit more about me and what I do, please feel free to send me a message at any time.